Good morning. Thanks for joining us, and I'm joined by the Foreign Minister, Penny Wong. Can I firstly express my condolences to the family and friends of Maxwell Hobson, who lost his life in the Victorian bushfires. That community will be grieving today, and I say to those people in Victoria, but also those in the flood-affected areas of North Queensland, this is not over. Please stay safe, listen to the authorities, and once again, I thank the volunteers, the police and emergency services, the Rural Fire Service, and others who are helping each other get through what is a very difficult time. Can I also announce that following a request from Rabbi Ullman, the spiritual leader of the Chabad community in Bondi, the National Day of Mourning, together with New South Wales, and I've discussed this with the New South Wales Premier, will be Thursday, 22nd of January. This will have a theme of Light Will Win, a gathering of unity and remembrance, which has been determined by the Rabbi. He has shown extraordinary leadership for someone who has lost family members in that community. Flags will be flown at half-mast in all Commonwealth buildings around Australia, and further details will be announced at the end of this week. There's another announcement today, which is that with deep appreciation for his tireless contribution as Prime Minister, as Foreign Minister, and as Ambassador to the United States of America, we announce that Dr. Kevin Rudd, AC, will conclude his posting as Australia's Ambassador to the United States at the end of March 2026. On behalf of our nation, we thank Kevin for his service to Australia and for taking forward Australia's interests with our closest security ally. It has been a complex area that has seen a change of presidency. Kevin Rudd developed relationships across the board, across Congress, across the Senate, across Democrat and Republican members, and of course, as well, across civil society and across officials. Kevin has decided to accept the role of global president of leading international relations think tank, the Asia Society, which has recently become vacant and which he headed between 2021 and 2023. He will also head the Society's Centre for China Analysis. As people would know, Kevin is regarded as perhaps the world's most eminent and sought-after expert on China and China-US relations. Indeed, his book should be compulsory reading for those interested in those issues. During both the Democrat and Republican administrations, Kevin has worked in collaboration with our closest security ally and principal strategic partner to achieve concrete outcomes. As Prime Minister, I have visited the United States on no less than 7 occasions. That is because of the productive work that Kevin Rudd has done across the board, including particularly advancing the economic relationship between our two nations, but also, of course, ensuring that AUKUS is able to proceed in a way that benefits Australia, the United States, as well as the United Kingdom, and indeed across the board. Since he commenced, he's led the Australian Embassy's work to advance our interests there, and Minister Wong will go through just some of those achievements. I do want to, though, also recognise the extraordinary work of Therese Rain. Therese is an extraordinary person who brings an incredible capacity on a volunteer basis to the engagement with the United States. And most recently, on my visit there to see President Trump at the White House, that was successful, I think, beyond some of your expectations, it might be said. It was in part the work of Therese as well as the work of Kevin that showed how successful that was, including of course, the direct engagement, not just with President Trump, but the events at our embassy, residents there, with Marco Rubio and Scott Besson and others as well. Kevin Rudd will conclude his posting on March 31st, 2026. We'll make an announcement in due course about Australia's new ambassador to the United States. Australia and the United States are the closest of friends and allies, and this will never change. We will continue to take forward the important work that Kevin has done. Some of it is, of course, ongoing work. The relationship on security and economic issues is ongoing. Indeed, Treasurer Chalmers is in the United States at the moment talking about critical minerals and advancing there as part of the G7 plus meetings that are occurring as we speak. Some is concluded. Julian Assange is now home. This was an issue in the relationship which Kevin Rudd played a critical role in resolving, and I think that assisted in boosting the relationship between our two great nations. I'll ask the Foreign Minister to make some comments and then we'll take some questions.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Well, first, can I add my condolences to those of the Prime Minister for the family and friends of Maxwell Hobson, and to express, I know what we all feel, which is our thoughts are with all of the affected communities from bushfires and floods in Victoria and Queensland, in our country. There are many communities which have been battling, and as the PM said, his message, the message of the government is to please ensure you continue to listen to the advice of relevant authorities. But of course we're here today at this press conference to announce that Kevin Rudd has determined to end his period as ambassador. And I want to echo what the PM has said. I want to express my personal thanks to Kevin for his tireless work as ambassador over the past 3 years. And I have seen firsthand just how hard he works, not just over the last 3 years, but throughout his public life. He's always brought an extraordinary level of energy and discipline to public service. He's applied his relentless effort, his experience, his intellect, and his determination to advance Australia's interests in Washington. And Kevin Rudd has served the nation well. Kevin has been an excellent ambassador. We thank him for his tireless contribution to Australia's national interests over the last 3 years. During his tenure, Australia secured US congressional support for authorising legislation for AUKUS, with full bipartisan support as well as full presidential endorsement from both Presidents Biden and Trump. Kevin negotiated and concluded the Critical Minerals and Rare Earths Framework Agreement with the US, which is now being implemented across multiple mining and processing projects which are benefiting both our countries. It forms the basis for US agreements with other partners, including with G7 partners. Kevin's helped unlock billions of dollars in new investment and collaboration, including AI data centres and quantum in sectors that will strengthen the Australian economy and our security for decades to come. And he's put Australia's superannuation industry on the map with the United States, turbocharging US engagement and investment and strengthening our credentials as a financial services centre of the Indo-Pacific. And as the PM has said, he also worked to secure Julian Assange's return to Australia in 2024. One of the announcements I made with Kevin when I was there a couple of years ago was the global entry for all Australian travellers to the United States as of 24/25, allowing reduced processing and waiting times at US international and domestic airports for those who are registered. That has done an enormous amount to assist business relationships. And he has done what our best ambassadors do, developing deep, enduring relationships across the political divide, across successive administrations, and always with a view to advancing Australia's interests. Diplomacy at its best. Patient and persistent work that benefits all Australians. I want to also personally thank Therese Rain. Therese is a woman of great substance, who has commercial success, of great intellect, and diplomatic skills, and we thank her for her invaluable contribution to Australia's national interests, both in this role but also in her past roles. Kevin will now take on the role, as the Prime Minister said, of the Global President of the Asia Society, and will also head the Society's Centre for China Analysis. I can say to you, as someone who engages not only with the United States but with our partners across the globe, that Kevin's expertise when it comes to China is sought after internationally by leaders far and wide. And I have no doubt he will continue in this new role to contribute to a better understanding of our region, the Indo-Pacific, at this critical time. So thank you, Kevin, for your exceptional work as Ambassador, for your lifelong contribution as a Member of Parliament, as Foreign Minister and as our Prime Minister. And thank you for continuing to serve Australia with your indefatigable work ethic and determination to shape our country for the better.
I'll go to you because you missed out yesterday. See, I do remember. And then we go round. Yeah.
During the last few years, Kevin Rudd's previous comments about Donald Trump have come under scrutiny. Do you think that will inform who is chosen to fill his role in the future?
No. If you look at a range of people who are playing critical roles in the Trump administration, I think that one of the things about President Trump is that he looks forward on these issues, and the relationship that Kevin has had with members of the Trump administration, whoever follows Kevin, if it's as good as that, I'll be pretty happy.
Scott Morrison has good ties with the Trump administration. Would you consider appointing him? And could I get your reflections on Alyssa Healy's career?
Oh, look, we'll make decisions down the track about the right person with the right skills, and the right skills to be able to reach across a broad spectrum of support. That was something that Kevin Rudd was able to do. I remember speaking to him when he was at both the Democrat and the Republican conventions. I must say, Kevin's advice and analysis, he was expecting the outcome that came, but he had an extraordinary capacity to work across the spectrum. So one of the things we'll be looking for is someone with those personal skills as well as experience in foreign affairs. Alyssa Healy is a legend. She has had such an incredible career playing for Australia and leading Australia. The rise of women's cricket, which has in parallel seen a rise of other women's sports, is a great thing. When I was trying to play cricket, do my best is the best that you could say, the idea, and rugby league for that matter, the idea that huge crowds, such were there at the World Cup final that I attended at the MCG, would watch women's team sport was something that wouldn't have been anticipated. It is a fantastic team that she has led. She not only is a great player, she will also, I'm sure, continue to evolve as I think she's a great cricket commentator. I think, you know, my two favourite commentators are both women, one from Australia, one from England at the moment, I think are just outstanding. And we certainly wish Alyssa all the very best.
Prime Minister, was this entirely Kevin Rudd's decision to go, and do you think there could be another role down the track for him in public life, or is this the end of his time in public life?
Yes, it was entirely Kevin Rudd's decision. I met with Kevin a while ago. This opportunity was there for Kevin. He is finishing up a year early, but he has served for 3 years. I think I've got a pretty good work ethic, and I sometimes say to you lot, just try to keep up. Kevin Rudd has a work ethic unlike anyone I have ever met. He has worked tirelessly. He's moving on to a role that he believes is pivotal. Kevin Rudd will tell you privately what he has said publicly, and what drove him to write the book is that the relationship between the United States and China, the two big superpowers, is, he thinks, the most important one that will define the mid part of this century. he sees this as a continuation of his public service to not just Australia, but to the global community.
Prime Minister, on Iran, you've expressed solidarity with the people of Iran, but should Australia and the international community more largely be doing more to support people who are opposing an authoritarian regime and to prevent the bloodshed there?
Well, I've said very clearly our view, which is to condemn the Iranian regime. As I said yesterday, we stood in this courtyard and expelled the Iranian ambassador for what they were doing here in Australia, intervening in our domestic affairs in the most abominable way possible. That was the first time that an ambassador has been expelled from Australia since the Second World War. We have taken sanctions against the Iranian regime across the board that the Foreign Minister might like to add on. But we stand with the people of Iran in fighting against what is an oppressive regime, one that has oppressed its people, one that is, I hope, is removed by the people. And we want to see a functioning democratic Iran in which human rights are respected.
Australia stands with the brave people of Iran in their struggle against an oppressive regime, and what we have seen over recent days and weeks is an oppressive regime becoming ever more violent and ever more brutal against its own people in an attempt to retain power. So what I would say to that regime is not only is the world calling on you to stop killing your people, but a regime that requires the murder of its own people to maintain authority is not a regime with any legitimacy. We have taken stronger action against Iran than any previous Australian government. We have taken some 200 sanctions, including IRGC members and entities and other entities and individuals. We were at the forefront of removing Iran from a UN body in relation to the discrimination against women. We have strengthened our sanctions regime to enable more sanctions to be targeted, particularly for the targeting of women and girls. And as the Prime Minister said, we have also expelled the Iranian ambassador for the reasons I have previously articulated. So we continue to call on the regime, as has President Trump and world leaders, to cease this brutal oppression of its people.
Yep.
Have you had any suggestion from the Trump administration that it was time to move Kevin Rudd on? Was there any correspondence there? And also, have you had any indication of when the US might like to appoint an ambassador to Australia?
No to the first question, absolutely not. And secondly, that's a matter for the United States.
Prime Minister, is the structure of the rules-based order the answer to the challenges over control of Greenland? Is that the position of the Australian government?
The Australian government's position, the Foreign Minister can outline, but it's pretty clear.
Look, the future of Greenland is a matter for Denmark and the people of Greenland, and Australia's made that clear.
Regarding your changes to hate speech legislation, it's solely focused on ethnic or racial discrimination. Why, can you just explain the rationale for the carve-out of religious-based texts?
Look, the laws will set a principle-based test for conduct and speech that incites racial hatred towards another person or group. The bill will be has been referred to the PJCIS. We want to get the broadest possible support for this bill. I don't know if you've read the Old Testament, but I refer you to that.
Prime Minister, just on that.
And Paul, and then we're going just in a line.
Did the coalition yesterday in the private briefings raise any concern about the fact that the bill is connected in terms of hate speech and gun reform? And you say you're open to amendments. Would that be something you're open to, splitting the bills to allow debate on the separate sections of it, or are you closed to that?
On the first, I wasn't at the private briefings. They were private briefings. I had a private meeting with the Leader of the Opposition. The terrorists at Bondi Beach had hatred in their minds, but guns in their hands. And this bill will get rid of both of those issues, will address both those issues. I was at the funeral of Peter Marr a week ago, as I said yesterday. David Marr said this: gun reform alone will not solve hatred or extremism, but an anti-Semite without a gun is just a hate-filled person. An anti-Semite with a gun is a killer. That is what David Marr had to say. These are complex laws. Our focus is on making a difference. And part of these laws is that you would need to be an Australian citizen to hold a gun licence. What that means is that the perpetrators, alleged perpetrators at Bondi Beach, wouldn't have had a gun licence.
Prime Minister, the draft laws in relation to the new offence around inciting or promoting hatred do have a narrow defence for quoting from religious texts for the purpose of teaching or education. Could you, it's different to that exclusion, so this is a defence. Could you explain the thinking for allowing potential hate speech if it's quoting from these texts?
No, well, I just answered the question. I can answer it again by referring you to the Old Testament and to various religious texts. If you do not, well, I encourage you to read the Old Testament and see what's there and see if you outlaw that, what would occur. So we need to be careful. We consulted with faith groups, not just with the Jewish community. We want to make sure there's the broadest possible support for this legislation, but we also want to make sure that there isn't unintended consequences of the legislation as well. But that's why we've referred it to a committee as well that will examine those issues.
Yeah, Mr. When I asked you about the gun buyback scheme, excuse me, you said it was up for the states to speak for themselves. The Northern Territory Chief Minister yesterday said it shouldn't be up to Territorians to pay for the scheme. She wants the federal government to fully foot the bill. Is that something you've spoken to her about? Is that something you're open to considering?
No, I haven't, but there's nothing unusual about a Premier or Chief Minister saying that someone else should pay for things.
Prime Minister, you said yesterday and today about hate in their heart but guns in their hands. There are plenty of Australians that would have guns in their hands and not have hate in their heart.
Agree.
What's your message to them, because they would right now feel they're being punished for the actions of two terrorists?
Well, they're not going to be punished. State governments will establish the legislation about what occurs with gun ownership. If you have a look at the Commonwealth legislation that will go before the Parliament, it will stop non-citizens getting access to guns. I think that is just common sense. Frankly, I reckon that Australians would be surprised that non-citizens can get access to a gun licence. Citizenship implies commitment, more than implies, signals commitment to Australia. And the idea that that is permissible, I think would surprise Australians. We're closing that loophole. We're dealing with customs as well, so that new technology has meant that there is able to be some imports into Australia that aren't covered. They should be covered. There are things that can be, you can't import an AK-47 into Australia. There are other things with new technology that should be covered. And the third is a gun buyback scheme, simply authorising the expenditure of funding so that the Commonwealth will participate with states and territories in a gun buyback. I think Australians would also be surprised to hear the fact that there are more guns in Australia today than there were at the time of the Port Arthur massacre. We need to deal with all of these issues, and we are dealing with them appropriately. It is perfectly legitimate for a range of people to have guns and access that's necessary in a country like ours with agriculture and large properties. That's not the objective here of interfering, and that's a matter, frankly, for the states and territories. What we are dealing with is Commonwealth responsibility, and I am surprised that anyone in this Parliament could walk in and vote against those issues, against the gun buyback, against the provision that says you've got to be a citizen, and against the strengthening of our customs to stop the importing of dangerous materials.
Prime Minister, Allegra Spender has said it's a double standard to only have the new offence of inciting hatred apply specifically to race. She says it should cover other things like religion and sexual orientation to create a broader protection. Barnaby Joyce has said that he wants to move an amendment that would make it illegal to burn the Australian flag. Are these ideas, these additions, things that you're open to, or are we really just talking about what's already in the bill and making it stronger in that form?
Look, we have the legislation that's there. We'll have a process going forward, but we think the focus is very much on the aftermath of December 14. It is on what was an anti-Semitic terrorist attack. On broader issues, what we intend to do is to have a process to look at other areas of hate speech. If the legislation is carried by the Parliament, that will be referred to a process going forward.
The families of Bondi victims are saying that the $75,000 of compensation they can access through the New South Wales government is not enough. They're asking for federal government compensation. Is your government open to offering some sort of compensation scheme?
Oh, look, I've regularly engaged with people, including Rabbi Ullman, who's the spiritual leader of that community. We'll continue to engage constructively.
I was going to ask about the same thing. When you say engage constructively, is it something that you're considering? Is it something that you're open to?
Well, we don't make financing decisions at a press conference. We engage respectfully and constructively, and we'll continue to do so.
You've said that this is a moment for unity. How open are you to amendments, noting some of these criticisms about these laws?
Well, we're open to amendments that are about specifically this issue if people have a good position to go forward. We don't have a majority in the Senate. I've sat down with the Leader of the Opposition regularly. I had a discussion with Senator Waters yesterday late afternoon as well. I had a discussion with Allegra Spender yesterday as well. We'll continue to engage constructively, but what this isn't an opportunity to do is to do things, to raise things that aren't directly, to try to, this isn't about the Australian flag. We support the Australian flag, Australians do, but this is about going forward in unity. And I just ask people to not look for reasons to disagree, look for reasons to agree. Come to this with the spirit in which the government has, sitting down with people, consulting. That is what we have done. We're continuing to do that constructively. This is a moment where at times of national crisis, the country has come together. The country has not had, as a member of opposition, the opposition at the time, of the Bali bombing, of Port Arthur, of the Lint Cafe siege, of other issues, indeed other issues that aren't related to violence and hatred as well, such as during COVID. We came together and supported what was needed for the country. The country needs national unity, and I hope that members of the House of Representatives and the Senate come together in that spirit of national unity. That is what we are looking for.
Thank you. Are you concerned that these laws are very reactive to one very specific incident? And secondly, there has been a spike in Islamophobia. Will these laws address that as well? And what are you doing to promote social cohesion in that space?
With the very spirit in which we're going forward, including the provisions of the Royal Commission about social cohesion, we regard this as a moment where we need to emphasise that the Australian way is to show respect for each other, to respect people for who they are, to allow people to express their faith and to go about their everyday activity without fear of vilification or an escalation into violence at any time. I note that the imam who was assaulted recently, that is completely unacceptable behaviour, and the perpetrators should face the full force of the law. That is what should occur. You know, whether it is a Jewish student going to school, wearing school uniform, or a woman wearing a hijab, they are equally deserving of respect like all Australians are. Simple as that. And I've spoken about the Australian Covenant before. The Australian Covenant is that for people coming to Australia, if you have any hatred or prejudice, you leave that in the customs hall. Australians respect each other. We are overwhelmingly a tolerant, multicultural nation, and that is important going forward. Thank you very much.